Okay, let's get started. So I've got an egg carton lid. This is to go with the toothpicks. And the toothpicks are for the heads to be sculpted onto. First, going to get some putty. Need to mix the putty. And it's all old, so it's bonded together a bit. So we'll start with a small section. Do I have blue tack? First I should get blue tack. Pause. Okay. Got some blue tack or tough tack. So the reason I want this is so that I can get one of the heads and have it as an example piece so that I've got similar scale. Just need a tiny bit. Okay, so the process that I'm going to go through is first cut equal section of blue and yellow, mix them together, and that will start the bonding process of the green stuff. Once it's green, it will start to solidify, and I'll only have a certain amount of time where it's malleable enough that I can sculpt anything with it. It's a reasonable amount of time, and as it gets harder over time, you can sculpt more into it. It's harder to make the impressions, but it also means you've got that as a safety net so that you're not going to squish it, or you might be able to do more fine detail, as it may be a bit too squishy when it's still very soft. And similar with aged blue tack or tough tack. Just needs to be kneaded into being more malleable. Okay. So there's 10 of the first type of head and 10 of the second type of head, and a total of 10 of these miniatures. So that means I could do all of one head or all of the other, or I could have a mix. So that means I've got spare heads. Let's see. Since I'm wanting to replace the faces instead of their helmets, I'm wanting to use one of the faces. But since I could use these for other purposes, I'd rather use one that's a duplicate. That's 3, 4, 5. Alright, it looks like there's just one of it. So they're each numbered, and it looks like each of the heads without a helmet on is unique. So you only get one in each set. That's right, I'm not going to use all of them, and at this point I'm not really going to use any of them except as examples. This one, number 5. Okay, number 5 is going to be the example piece. So it comes on a rounded socket so that it can slot into a ditch in the neck. Let's see. Alright, I've got the drill, but I don't have the drill pieces. So I'll look for them another day. Instead, what can I use as a substitute? Okay, I've got a spike. Perhaps if I start with this, just to make a score in it. Okay, so I'm just wanting to hollow out this neck a little so that I can stick a toothpick in it with blue tack attaching. Right, now that I've got a center point under the head, under the neck, the part that I'm boring into now, this is where it will actually be glued on and connecting between this and the body if it was going to be used. So this will never be seen. By twisting the blade around with the point digging in, it's actually carving out an indentation into the neck. So camera's not really set up to see the detail of it, but this is the head upright. So this is the head upside down, and it has, as you can see from the shadow, there's the hole there. And that hole will fit a toothpick nicely. So I could glue it, but for now I'll just blue tack it. and see how well this works. Alright, it's holding. The purpose of the egg carton and the double-ended toothpicks. Alright, so now I've got a size reference. Alright, so now I want to get some of the sculpting putty and mix it together. I just want a tiny amount to do heads. It's important to note that this is a highly toxic substance. You can't wipe your eyes or your mouth or anything that has a membrane of any sort on your body. Otherwise, you'll get severe irritation. Okay, so it's more yellow than there is blue, but it's the same thickness. So I'll then cut off the middle section, and wherever the colours have connected, this is a bit of overlap. Just because that could have already bonded and become green and then become unusable at the midsection where it connected. So now I've got the yellow and the blue, press them together, fold them over, and just keep kneading it together until it's all green. And it will be similar to this shade of green. So, twist it around, squish it, twist it, squish it, and just keep going. It'll become more malleable as you go. And it will also mean that you've got a cleaner finish once the sculpting is done. It won't have any weak spots in it. If you were going to be using a vulcanized rubber molding system, similar to what the larger production companies of miniatures use, or they at least used to use them back when I was sculpting originally, if you had inconsistencies within your material, that could destroy the mold, well, destroy the miniature, and then by doing so it would be a waste of a mold. Careful not to rub my eye with the wrong finger. Alright, so now it's all green. It's got a bit more of a yellow tinge than I'd want, but that's just because I removed a bit more of the blue. But this will still have a proper bond, and I think it will just be more malleable by being more yellow. I can't remember if that's the right way around it goes for whether it's a harder or a softer putty. Now I get a ball, or just a chunk, and make it a similar size to the original head. bit more to make it a bit closer, a little bit more. That's close enough. I'll just secure it down a bit onto the toothpick. Okay. Now, let's have a bit of a dabble. Maybe a spike's not the best way to start. Right. Now, the surface is very tacky, very sticky. And so you need to maintain some moisture on your tools so that they don't stick or pull when you're trying to smooth things. So the way I do it is I just use saliva. When I've got Vaseline or some other substance, actually, I have Vaseline, I think. Let me double check. Okay, so I was able to find some Vaseline, and just so that I don't have to keep getting some, that's way too much. I'll clean that up at the end. Right. So I don't want too much because I don't want the Vaseline to bond with the material. Instead, I just want it to be a smoothing agent, a lubricant between the tools and the putty. Now I can feel straight away an issue that comes up very often, and that is when you're using a larger, this is actually a large portion of the green stuff, and so a large freestanding portion of the green stuff, doing even the general shaping of a head can be difficult if you're doing it freestanding. And I consider this to be freestanding because the bulk isn't supported by anything other than just a pinpoint with the toothpick. So there's no underlying structure. So ideally, you wouldn't do this just in a single session. Instead, you would do this over multiple sessions or just even over a longer time. Whereas I'm just wanting to do this in one sitting, nice and quick, so that I can get this sequence of videos out before going to bed. So with each bit of pressure that I'm applying, it's actually deforming the entire shape. And so better would be to get a smaller ball, put it on, connect it more solidly, and then just let it rest for even a day, 24 hours, and that way it will be completely hardened, and it will be something that you can then add more putty to and work with that additional putty, and it will have something to be pushed against. It'll have something solid in it. And that will prevent accidental deformities of the general shape. With accidental deformities of the whole shape, it can also include deforming around where it's connected to the toothpick, which means it could fall off. So, lesson 1 is what not to do. Right. Just going to lubricate my finger a bit so that it's not a sticking surface. I'm going to square it off a little bit. Just so I can define the sides and front a little more clearly. Just stuck to the top a little there. And with each bit where I use my finger, I leave a bit of my fingerprint in this as well. Which is partly why you've got to be extra careful of letting it stick to surfaces. Okay, it's needed for a size comparison now. Yeah, it's pretty close to the tower head, which just means the scale is right. But I'm not using the tower head as the basis for what a head should look like, because it's an alien face. With the lubrication, you just want as thin of a layer as possible. You don't want it to stick, but you don't want it to leave a residue either. Now, just as a bit of a practice run, I'm starting out with the indentations of the eye sockets and going to work my way down the face from there. Dragging and pushing to get the nose shape. following out the cheeks a little bit. Yeah, the head is really deforming from what I originally had. Just the general shape of it is very deformed now, because all of the work I'm doing is on one side of it, which is just flattening it into the back of the head. Now I'm going for the nostrils, just gently does it. Get in there and give it a bit of a wiggle just to flare them out slightly. Bring the eyebrow, the eye ridges up just slightly. Look, overshot on that one. Flaring out the eyebrows a little, the ridges above the eyes. And dragging down below the eye slightly. That way it forms a bit of a raised section so that I've got eyes. And again, it's just been flattening against my finger there. So, doing the facial features, you can get some definition on it, even with a single piece sculpt, but the overall shape of the head suffers. So if there was the internal structure, the details would come out just as well. It just takes practice and you can get it. But the structure wouldn't be destroyed by doing it. Now, I'll give it a bit of a mouth. Start with a little cleft. And then, just with the tip, I'll cut a little mouth into it. And then I'll flare out the top lip by pulling it out a little. And I'll pull it out on the two sides. And then cut it in the middle and bring it up a little bit just to match. Alright, so the eye there is connecting with the bottom, so just clear that up a little. And again on the other side. go for some ears. This is just pulling it out. First pull up, then pull it down. It's okay to poke in a bit when doing the ears, just because they do go in, and so it'll give kind of the right shape. So they start out very elven or goblinish, just coming up in a streak, but then humanized by bringing a larger section down. Now they're a bit big, they're a bit uneven, but that's okay for now. You do go through the lubricant, so it is worth having a bit of a stash, not that much, but some. Right, so now I'll work on the chin a bit now, just to separate it from the mouth. Okay, now it's got a bit of a oversized chin to the size of his mouth. It's not really structured with the jaw properly, so I think I could just drag the mouth down so that it's more of an open mouth look. And when you're dragging a mouth open, it exposes the teeth more, but by dragging in separate sections, you're able to leave a gap between the point as it goes in, so that creates teeth in the mouth. It's good to cut the teeth off at some point as well, so that they don't, so they're not fangs, so they don't go all the way along. Now to do that, it actually helps to use something that's got a flat end instead of a pointed end. A curved end can still work well. And on some angles it is actually a little bit flat, so that's good. But not with enough space in here to really use that flat surface. separating the cheeks a little bit from the mouth, along down the line from the nose. Then drawing the mouth out again, just slightly so that it presses the cheeks up. Now going for the bottom jaw, separating the teeth from the lips a little bit more. All right. So changed the scale slightly. So now this head that I've sculpted is of a slightly larger scale than the other one, the tower head. I'll just stick it in there so that it can set. And with this remaining section, just get it working again a bit. And with this, I'll prepare for the next ones. So I'll use a smaller piece and just set it up as a stabilizing point for the next few heads. Make that one a little bigger. Okay, so I'll round these off just so that they don't have any odd shapes to them. Then I'll grab one more toothpick and make the base for 4 heads that I can get on with tomorrow. And for this, fingerprinting on the green will just add more surface variation for the next bit of green stuff to really hold on to. So while there is the chemical bondings element, the chemical